Next, let's talk about statistics as a type of research that you can use to support yourself. A lot of times when we're thinking about research and supporting materials that can help make your argument 10 feet tall and bulletproof, we think about statistics. But you need to recognize a couple of things. Statistics can be very powerful numerical representations of a particular point that you're making in an argument, and that's great. But you want to make sure and remember that statistics can be easily manipulated, and that you need to pay attention to where the research is coming from, who's funding the research that's happening, do they have a particular ideological perspective that's coming out of that, and perhaps influencing those statistics. And that's something you want to recognize and perhaps clarify that for your audience. Honesty is tremendously important whenever it comes to statistics and recognizing what story is being told by the data that you're providing. Okay? Also, in terms of delivery and your impact and your relationship with your audience, you need to recognize that for potentially 50% of the folks who are out there listening to you, when they hear numbers, their minds click off. There's something in their past that's alienated them from numbers. So when you turn towards statistical data as a primary central piece of your supporting materials, you need to know that oftentimes that needs to be coupled with good illustrations, stories, things that have some emotional pull, more anecdotes perhaps. Those kinds of things coupled with statistical data can be very powerful and very effective. Okay? Now let's talk about scholarship. For those of us who are in the academy, we often think of scholarship as what really makes an argument 10 feet tall and bulletproof. Now, statistics oftentimes come out of scholarship, and that's great. The reason that those of us in the academy think that scholarship is so effective in terms of supporting your argument is because you have experts, folks who have studied a particular topic or research area for a long time and have been recognized as experts on that particular topic, studying it and producing research that is then sent out to journals, sent out to conferences where it's peer-reviewed by other experts. And those other experts can look at it and say, okay, well, carr-chellman has not done the work he needs to do with this particular type of research, so we're not going to publish it this time. They send it back to me. I've got to change things, make it stronger, send it back. Okay? Or they say carr-chellman did a great job with this. This is wonderful research. We're going to accept it, and this is generating new knowledge about this particular area. So it's that peer review process, experts talking to experts about a particular thing, that makes scholarship particularly powerful. Now, the scholarship that many of your professors at a place like Penn State produce is published in journals, it's published in conference proceedings, and you can find those. You have access to those. And we'll talk in a few minutes how you can find some of those things, many of those things, most of those things. Now, we need to talk about the internet. Okay? When you are using the internet, obviously you understand, because it's such a prominent tool that many of us use very frequently these days, that the internet comes with a good side and a bad side. Everything is out there. That's a good thing. Lots of information. But you need to recognize that in many cases that information is not good. And I know I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but I need to say it because it's tremendously important. If you are giving your speech and you are citing CNN.com or FoxNews.com, or if you are citing Wikipedia, or if you're citing a website that perhaps your audience doesn't know and you're assuming they do know it, how do we know that the information there is truthful, accurate, up to date? So you need to always be aware of the source. So on the internet, it's not like CNN.com or FoxNews.com is giving you inaccurate information. The issue is that they're often putting information out there that's up to date, up to the minute. So it isn't the official news of record. If you're looking for journalistic support, I would go to the New York Times, the Washington Post, a major newspaper from a major urban center. Those are oftentimes the newspapers of record. We've always, for years, referred to the New York Times as the newspaper of record. That's kind of fallen by the wayside a little bit over the last several years, but that's where you want to turn. And we'll provide on the Angel page some URLs where you can find a search engine that will connect you to all these newspapers, up to date, going back to 1899 through last week. You'll be able to find them and dig those up. Now, also on the internet, you can find scholarship, tons of scholarship. You can find think tanks that are producing research that can support your arguments. So the internet is a very powerful tool, but you need to be thinking about some hallmarks of veracity, truthfulness, and accuracy in the information they're providing. 1. Does the website or the PDF that you're looking at on the internet cite an author or a source? Does it let you know how they're funded? Does it include a bibliography? And does that bibliography include other sources that you have dug up as authoritative in your research process? If it doesn't provide any of these things, then you want to think twice about using it. If it doesn't list when it was most recently updated, or if it does and it hasn't been updated for a couple of years, I wouldn't use it. So those are some really important things to keep in mind when you're looking at a web page, something on the internet, as a source. Okay? Obviously, lots more can be said about that, but let's move on to talking about some research strategies. Now, when you are moving into, and maybe some of you already have, when you're moving into actually performing your research, there are some things that I want you to keep in mind, sort of collected wisdom that I've generated, that Allie has generated over the years. 1, and you knew I would say this, start early. So get out there, get online, get on the web, start with Google. Okay? Google is wonderful for brainstorming. Get on there and let it point you into some directions so you can get a sense of the lay of the land, and then get more specific and find some better search engines. Google Scholar is quite good in terms of getting good scholarship and good peer-reviewed research. Regardless, start early. When you're sitting in your living room or in your dorm room waiting for your date to come pick you up, and you've got 10 minutes to kill, you can find 10 articles. You can find 10 pieces of information that can help support your argument, right? And so you don't have time to look at it in depth. You've dug them up, you bookmark them, you go back to them later and look at them more in depth. But it's that easy, okay? The Penn State University library system has one text box where you type in what you're searching for and it searches everything in the library. It's unbelievable. So you have no excuse for not doing some good research here. It's simple, it's easy. In many cases, you can download it to your hard drive and print it out from there. And maybe you don't even have to download it in some cases. So the information is there. Start early, get going. 2, determine where you need to go. Look at your topic, your thesis, and decide, okay, what are the sources that I want to target that are going to build my ethos, my pathos, and my logos most effectively. Okay, that's another thing. 3, you want to learn about the library, and you want to learn about the search engines, the databases that are most useful for your particular topic. Okay, that's kind of an extension of knowing where you need to go. Develop a preliminary bibliography. So you've taken a half an hour and you've dug up 30 or 40, because you can do that in a half an hour, 30 or 40 sources. That's your preliminary bibliography. You're looking at that and you're saying, these are a bunch of sources that I'd like to look into. And from that preliminary bibliography, you have a set of priorities that you work from. And you're saying, all right, this is the argument I want to make. These are the sources that I'm going to use to most effectively make that argument. Those are your priorities. And then you sort of call out of that preliminary bibliography a final bibliography that you're going to use to really write your speech.